Welcome to the Pointy End. I'm Keith Sutherland. Today my guest is Jennifer Alden, endorsed Greens candidate for the City of Greater Bendigo, Lockwood Ward. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thanks, Keith.
Now, it wasn't so long ago we were interviewing after the elections, but now you've moved on and you're standing for local government. Now, I have to clarify firstly, when you say it's an endorsed candidate for the Greens, why is it that the Greens insist on having endorsed? Because we know that there are plenty of councillors in there that are have memberships of political parties, but for some reason the Greens seem to want to have an endorsed candidate, and hence you're standing as an individual but under their banner.
Well, it's actually part of being a member of the Greens is that you're required to be endorsed when you stand at local government level. There's many Greens councillors around Australia, of course, there have been for quite a long time. But it's really, for me, I'm proud to be endorsed because it's a statement of principles and values for me. And it's also all about openness and transparency. Now, as you mentioned, Keith, you do see people who put themselves forward without that transparency. They do have alliances or vested interests. So for me, it's all about that, the values and principles that I'm very proud to stand by. Okay,
coming back to that, you say values and principles, and I understand that, and there's always a whole heap of policies that the Greens have, particularly on state and federal levels, of course. But at the end of the day, does that not come into conflict with, say, individual items that are coming up, say, affecting the City of Greater Bendigo? And now I know the Greens policy is obviously conservation, retaining green areas and things like this, but there are times when development can affect, perhaps because you've got a principle for the Greens policy, but you've also got another understanding for economic development. Sometimes there's a balancing act, so how do you equate those two issues?
Very easily. I actually don't see any conflict at all, Keith. At the council table, I would bring my own judgment to each issue. Each individual issue is judged on its merits. Of course, you bring with you your own values and principles. But I've also, over many years, always worked on a principle of looking at decision making from what I call a quadruple bottom line. So taking into account the health impacts, the social, the environmental, as well as the financial impact of our decision making. And I think that's how you get a better outcome for the communities, and particularly in the longer term.
Okay. One final thing on the Greens part of it, and then we'll get on to some of your policies. Basically, you're saying that, okay, you're standing for the Greens, of course, and proudly doing so, but at the same token that you've got your thoughts and aspirations about where you're going with some of these things, but at the end of the day, the Greens have about 10% of the voting pattern across the ward. Does that limit your people that perhaps going to vote? Because if you equate that back to local government, you've got state, federal, always about 10%. So does that limit the people that are going to vote, or do you think you're going to get that sympathetic vote because you are standing as a Green, you've got different values to what other people do have? Because, as I said, that seems to me a little bit limiting when you've got, say, 45% of the votes each for Liberal, Labor, and then, I'm talking politics here, but yep, politics comes into everyday life. So I would have thought by saying, all right, I'm Greens, that limits the number of people who are going to vote for you.
Well, to be honest, I don't think it's actually an issue, Keith. I'm sorry to say it again, but I've actually stood, as you're probably aware, for local government in the past. I've put myself forward at different levels to actually provide my skills and experience in the community. And so the opportunity to do that really presented itself way back in the 2002 local government elections. I don't know if you remember back then, Diamond Hill Ward. I actually got 37% of the primary vote then. So I didn't feel that what I was putting forward, talking about engaging with our community, having a vision for more healthy communities, a range of things, I didn't feel that people found that was an issue.
Okay, well I suppose you'd be happy to get 37.5% this time, and we'll come to preferences shortly. Why Lockwood Ward, and what skills do you think that you've got to offer that perhaps some of the other candidates don't have in that Lockwood Ward?
Well, I've lived in the ward for a start for the last over 20 years. We had 5 years out at Kangaroo Flat, and we've been in Spring Gully for the last 16 years. We've found a very welcoming community in both cases, loved the environment. So I think that at the local level, again, it's about what do I bring to the table. I bring over 30 years of experience. I've been on numerous local boards, committees, working groups, always working in the community's better interest. I've got an ability to actually make projects happen, and I have had vast experience in that area. And I also understand what it takes to get expert advice to get really good outcomes. And I think that's really important, particularly working in Lockwood. I've been talking with people. I'd be really keen to be an effective voice for the community. People have been telling me that, you know, particularly when they're not necessarily feeling heard. And I think that's a really important thing to be able to do, to stand up and provide that voice.
Okay. Another thing, I was reading through some of your information. Basically, you're trying to protect green space, and I understand that, and obviously that's an issue with the Greens, very much so. But at the end of the day, what's your thoughts on the latest Rosalind Park? They've come out with their latest plan on there, and I know that the late Daryl McClure has always talked about the encroachment on Rosalind Park. We've taken a piece for this, we've taken a piece for that. But are you happy with the latest master plan for Rosalind Park, talking about green space? And that's probably our most focal point, right in the heart of the city. I know we've got parks around the city, but that's the one that most people sort of see, visit and do things at.
It's a lovely big space in the centre of the city. Aren't we lucky?
We are.
Not only bounded by forest, but we've got this beautiful green epicentre. I think it's a terrific idea to have a bigger vision. Of course, it's a 30-year plan, so everything doesn't happen overnight. I like the emphasis on removing car spaces and bringing people in through the various aspects into the park. A lot more walkable, a lot more usable, increasing the urban canopy, the tree canopy. With warming in our environment, we actually need more heat refuges in the summer, so it will serve multiple purposes. I think that's a grand plan. There's a lot of discussion, there has been, with Council looking at public open space, and I've been involved with submissions and ideas, and it's not limited just to the centre of town. I think when we're thinking about our communities and designing our communities and developments, we really need to bear in mind the health and the social and the environmental impacts of how we're planning, and green open space is really, really important.
Just on that point, an issue that I've taken up with Councillor James Williams, who's chair of that committee. Basically, I go there a lot in Rosalind Park, take family, we go on picnics, but there's no space for barbecues. So just keep that in the back of your mind that perhaps there should be a barbecue area somewhere, because families in the summer, spring months, and they'll be coming on right from tomorrow, of course, spring. But there's just no barbecue facilities. You have it everywhere else, but not in Rosalind Park. So if you get elected, I'll be on your back.
That's a good point. I remember many happy summers with our children at the pool up there in Barnard Street. So, you know, having picnic dinners and things like that. So the community will certainly gravitate to those spaces, particularly when they're improved.
Another one of the issues that you highlighted was public health and wellbeing plan. Now, that's your background, your workspace in that area. But what other things do you think you can assist with in that particular area? Because it's an important issue. We've talked about Bendigo being obese in the past. We do need to sort of get onto this issue because it comes with health problems, fitness, the whole lot, box and die. So what other areas do you think that we can improve on with the current plan the council have?
Well, it's really exciting actually to be able to bring some skills and experience into that area particularly. As you know, I've got a doctorate of public health. I've worked in the area for a long time. I'm really keen on healthy communities, and again, the social and the environmental impacts of our decision making come into our healthy communities. People may not realise that every time a council is elected, there's 12 months in which to create a new municipal public health and wellbeing plan. So I'm really keen to bring some ideas to the table for that. People will also know that I've been more recently associated with a lot of healthy eating initiatives in Bendigo, particularly concerned about access to and affordability of healthy food, the impacts on our waistlines as well as our general health of healthy eating choices that we have. And I'm also really keen to promote the fact that people can be involved in growing food, learning how to cook it, sharing food. So through groups that I've been involved with setting up, like Incredible Edible Bendigo, chairing the Bendigo Regional Food Alliance, we know that people are really interested in connecting around food, growing, cooking, sharing. So that's a great entry point into creating healthier communities. So really looking forward to getting stuck in on that.
And another issue is to get elected these days, because this election right across the board in all three wards, there are so many candidates, it's quite incredible, particularly with the Lockwood Ward. There's, I don't know, 15, 16 and counting. I've lost count of how many. And I think there's about 7 or 8 or something like that so far in Lockwood. Have you done any deals, or are you doing deals on preference? Because to get elected, you really do have to have a pattern of doing deals with somebody to get their preference flows. In the past, the existing councillors, and we've got the 3 ward councillors, Fife, Lyons and Les Chapman, they usually preference each other. I don't know if that'll happen again this year, but anyway, have you done deals with anybody at this point in time for your preferences?
Not at this point in time, Keith. I'm aware that that's the reality of these situations. I would like to think that progressive, I see myself as very progressive. There may be others who are much less progressive. And I'd like to think that people who would like to support my candidacy would also be in that progressive camp.
So like-minded people, that's the ones you're
Yes.
going to support,
Yes.
not the ones that may get the most number of votes,
No.
because let's be honest, it's without those votes and preferences, it doesn't work.
Yes, but there's also principles involved, Keith.
Fair enough. Finally, the other thing I did notice was that you said the council desperately needs renewal, new skills and fresh vision. So what you're really saying by that is renewal means something new. So what you're saying that we've got 3 existing ward councillors. I'm not just particularly, you're standing for Lockwood, so it's time for a change. Is that what you're really saying with that?
Yes. When we moved to Bendigo 34 years ago, we were made to feel really welcome. I'd like to see a Bendigo where everybody is made to feel welcome, regardless of their background. That's very important to me. It's also a really critical time for Bendigo. The council has become an extremely big business and we need some really good skills, and that's why I'm putting myself forward and contributing at this point in my career. I think it's so important. We've got exciting things happening around the world at local government level. I think that we really need to be able to put forward terrific skill sets into our council. I've been involved in many of the working groups and strategies, etc., that council's been involved with, and I think there's some terrific work being done. I've actually been to many council meetings over the last year or more. I've probably seen you at a few, and to be honest, I really think that we could benefit with an improvement in many areas. I think we can do better than we have in recent times. So I'm really keen to put myself forward and have a go.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for appearing on the Pointy End today. I wish you well with your campaign, because I think votes have to be in by the 21st of October, so it's not far away for people,
Yep.
and you've got to be out there campaigning and doing your best. So it'll be interesting to see what numbers do actually put their name forward for Lockwood Ward. But we do wish you well, and we thank you for appearing on the program today.
Thanks very much, Keith. It's been great.
Thank you.